The Philippines was the most developed country on the Asian continent after World War II, but since then it has lagged behind other countries due to weak economic growth, government confiscation of wealth, widespread corruption, and neo-colonial influences. However, the Philippines is currently experiencing moderate economic growth, much of which is contributed by remittances by Filipino workers overseas, and the rapidly growing information technology sector. The Philippines is often regarded as the only country in Asia where the influence of Western culture is very strong. The country's major problems include the Bangsamoro separatist movement in the southern Philippines, in the Mindanao region, insurgents from the Communist New People's Army in rural areas, government policies that are often inconsistent, level increasing crime, and environmental damage such as deforestation and marine pollution. The Philippines is also experiencing the problem of overpopulation in urban areas due to the lack of jobs in rural areas and the high birth rate. The Philippines is famous for its hill rice farming, which was introduced some 2,000 years ago by the Bata tribe. The hill paddies are located on the slopes of the Bonay and Sagada Hills in Ifugao Province, and are located at an altitude of 5,000 feet above sea level. The area covers 4,000 square miles, and is cultivated traditionally without the use of fertilizers. It was declared a World Heritage by UNESCO, UN Agency for Education, Science and Culture, in 1995. The Philippine Army, PA, is the main, oldest and largest branch of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, AFP, responsible for ground warfare and currently has an estimated strength of over 100,000 soldiers, backed by 120,000 ready reserves. The Army traces its roots in the Philippines, to the Philippine Revolutionary Army founded in 1897, before the service branch was established on December 21, 1935 as the Philippine Commonwealth Army. The Philippine Army has engaged in many conflicts including the ongoing Communist Rebellion in the Philippines and the Moro conflict, and other conflicts worldwide. The Chief of the Army is its professional and overall head. Its main headquarters is located at Fort Andres Bonifacio, Metro Manila. After 3 centuries of Spanish rule there were calls for social reforms and an end to the perceived oppressive friar rule. In 1896, Andres Bonifacio founded the Katipunan to prepare his band of Filipinos for armed revolt against the Spanish government. The Katipunan formed an army of insurgents. Almost a year after the outbreak of hostilities between the Katipuneros and the Spanish troops, Emilio Aguinaldo's newly formed the Philippine Revolutionary Government and its army were officially born on March 22, 1897 at Tijeros, San Francisco de Malabon, Cavite. General Artemio Ricart was named Captain General of the Ejército en la República de las Islas Filipinas, or the Revolutionary Philippine Army. This date marks the founding day Philippine Revolutionary Army. On June 12, 1898, General Emilio Aguinaldo declared Philippine independence from Spain, and formed the first Philippine Republic, in which he sat as its president. The Filipino troops were to enjoy only a brief respite from combat when American forces came in to establish rule in the islands by virtue of the Treaty of Paris, which Spain co-signed with America on December 10, 1898. The treaty ceded the Philippines to the United States. During the final years of the Philippine-American War, with the notable successes by the All-Filipino Macabee Scouts Cavalry Squadron, raised in 1899, under U.S. command against the Philippine Revolutionary Army, the American President Theodore Roosevelt officially sanctioned the raising of the Philippine Scouts as part of the United States Army, with full effect starting from October 1901. Earlier, in August that same year, came the colonial civil government's decision to found the Philippine Constabulary as the National Gendarmerie Force for law enforcement. Both of these organizations and their victories over the PRA contributed to the official end of the conflict in 1902, even as resistance continued, inclusive of the Muslims of the South, resulting in the Moro Rebellion, through 1914. Starting in 1910, Filipino personnel in the Philippine Scouts were sent to the United States Military Academy, with one PS soldier being sent per year. Several of these graduates who served with the Scouts, plus PC officers, both formed part of the 1st Officer Corps of the revitalized Philippine Army established in 1935. When World War II broke out in December 1941, 2 regular and 10 reserve divisions of the Philippine Army undertook the defense of the Philippines. These divisions were incorporated into the United States Armed Forces in the Far East, USAF, under the command of General John de Silva and General MacArthur. Service of the Philippine Army, as part of the United States Army terminated as of midnight, June 30, 1946, by authority of General Order 168, U.S. Army Forces, Western Pacific. The next day, on July 1, President Manuel Roxas issued Executive Order No. 94S. 1947 which, among other things, reorganized the Philippine Army into a service branch of what was now called the Armed Forces of the Philippines. This resulted in the formation of the Philippine Air Force, and reformation of the Philippine Navy, as separate organizations after long years as part of the Philippine Army. In the early 50s and the mid-60s, the Philippine government extended a helping hand to war-torn countries, as part of its commitment as member of the United. Based on the world's military power summarized by global firepower. For 2021, Philippines is ranked 48 of 140 out of the countries considered for the annual GFP review. It holds a PWR score of 0.8219. A score of 0.0000 is considered perfect. This entry was last updated on March 3, 2021. With a population of 109,180,815 inhabitants. And the number of active military, 125,000 personnel. And military reserves, 130,000 personnel. As well as paramilitary, 60,000. With a total defense budget, $4.250 million. For air power, the Philippines has a total of 179 aircraft, 25 dedicated attack, 21 transport aircraft, 24 trainers, 9 special mission, 100 helicopters. For the Army, the Philippines has 4 tanks, 600 armored vehicles, 12 self-propelled artillery, 285 towed artillery. And for the Navy, the Philippines has total assets of 103, with 2 frigates, 4 corvettes, 55 patrol vessels.